You're watching Yuba-Sutter.live, Yuba-Sutter's live streaming channel on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for watching, and Merry Christmas. There's more Christmas to come on Yuba-Sutter.live. We're going all over Yuba-Sutter, catching a number of Christmas celebrations in the act of happening. Friday at 5 p.m. we'll have the Yuba City Christmas tree lighting, and then zip out to Sutter for the 6:30 Sutter Parade of Lights. If you missed any of them, you can binge watch them for the first time, or watch them again right here this Sunday night. 5 p.m., the Marysville Christmas tree lighting and 73rd Marysville Christmas Parade replay. We'll list the winners. Then at 7 p.m., the 55th Olivehurst Christmas Parade replay, also with winners noted. At 8 o'clock, the Yuba City Downtown Christmas Tree Lighting and Sutter Parade of Lights replay. Christmas events in Yuba-Sutter this Sunday evening at 5, 7, and 8. Merry Christmas, Yuba-Sutter.live. Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Did our study work. There's a significant water savings to be had with this project, and also similarly the next project we're asking for.
All right, any other questions?
I think you said at the pod that this is probably one of maybe several different phases that we're going to do.
So we have 2 grants that'll come today.
Maybe some after that.
And then there might be some. We have one that at the sequel will go today, and that's for metering and gates. These 2 will account for about 11,000 feet of the 15,000 feet approximately of it. And we've already done about, what was it, 800 feet or so, the pilot project?
Yes.
Already.
So
it's most of it, I'm sure there's other areas that would like to have.
Hallwood, when we did our initial study, we came up with approximately 10 capital improvement projects, I think similar to what you're looking at in South County. And you know, we're moving forward with our priority projects that best fit the USBR grant criteria. So hopefully in the future there would be some more. This is going to be some major pieces though to renovating the system and upgrading it.
So Hallwood's starting with the ones that we can, the most easily applicable to grant funding. Some of the later stuff might not have as easy grants out there for us. So we'll have to look at those.
Do we know how much, just roughly, water savings that these 2 projects should get?
Sure, I believe we had at least 25% or approximately 25% water loss in the calculations. So there would be a substantial
That's very
savings.
What do you think the time frame is to get these projects done?
This project right now, the USBR grant, we'll probably hear the results of that in June, and we'll have everything hopefully set up with the environmental clearance and the engineering and everything so that we would be able to proceed in 2026 or 2027.
Yeah, in here, we have April 27, because that'd be the end of the outage season. Okay, 27. Just depends on how long NEPA and funding and all that can continue.
Kyle, what makes the other projects harder to get grants for?
So like these are for water use efficiency, so water smart grants and that's ones that you know, we've Furher recently got one. We're going for some of those for North Yuba. It's just a good grant program that goes to like metering, seepage control and stuff like that. But once you get into more like gray infrastructure or repairing facilities, there's just less grant funding. And then the grants out there with the state and the federal budgets, the grant funding opportunities are shrinking, but the Water Smart program is still a fairly well-funded program. But once you get outside of the water use efficiency, there's less grants currently, right? In the future, we never know what's going to come up. But that's been a well that we've been able to go to across the agencies in the county to be able to get pretty good funding for it. But like when we brought the North Yuba, they lost that water resource control funding that was yanked, right? And then it went to water smart grants too. So
I'd just like to make a comment. I'd just like to thank you guys, Mark, Steve, and Mike, for finding these opportunities and improving the canal, because it'll make water delivery so much easier to control all the way down, because you know as well as I, you get those losses go up and down with different weather and everything, so it'll be much easier to, I think, to run the whole system. So I'm just glad you guys are taking the bull by the horn and finding these projects and doing them.
Kyle, do we have other member units with seepage issues?
yes, yeah. Right now, and metering right now. So Cordura, they have recently gotten a pretty large water smart grant. We approved a couple months ago the seepage improvement that we have funded with North Yuba on part of their ditch. And then they also are going for a larger water smart grant for efficiency. That's the metering side. And then they have more leaks that we'll probably see more and more stuff coming from all the different agencies that have the seepage issues.
Is the grant program pretty competitive? Like if you meet the requirements, they'll pay 50% of the cost, or is it still pretty competitive?
I don't know. I'll be speaking out of turn, but we seem to be getting them at a pretty good clip. So
Well, they're pretty competitive, but I think it's a testament to who's writing these grants. You know, we have these consultants on board that are helping the districts write these grants. So, yeah.
Right.
I believe having the cost, the matching funds also with the application and having the engineering work done and in the full package, it scores really quite well on the competition. And there's a lot of money under the USDR grant system.
one of the things that we've been pushing as a kind of the grants branch is to try to help the agencies have the most competitive packages, and that is having a process of design, some of the designs done, and then the cost share. It's all point systems of the grants. So the more well prepared they are, the more boxes you check, then the higher score. And one of the big boxes is local cost share, being able to cover that, and so that bumps all these grants up.
Okay, any other comments? Anybody like to make a motion?
So,
Second.
So help Mandy out.
Yes,
You got
good
two
motion
first and
first,
two
yes.
seconds.
Raise your hand if you were the first. Wayne?
mine.
All right,
And
and,
Gary second. How's that?
okay, all right.
Okay, we can switch on the next one. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Okay. I just want to lead right into the next one. I'll announce it. Item 4, consider approval of 50% cost share in the amount of $1,764,190 for seepage loss prevention feedlot warehouse ditch hauler irrigation company.
Almost the same project, just 7,500 feet at a different location where the worst seepage was identified. And both of these also, they have 2 different options for the contractor to go with. These grants are for the more expensive option, but the option we piloted with the concrete canvas cloth is actually the cheaper option. So that's also another good thing on both of these grants.
Is that the same process that started at North Yuba?
North Yuba shop.
They did this along the Highway 20, going right out of Marysville.
It's literally like a concrete cloth that you lay, and it's more intensive than just laying it in there. I mean, it's a pretty lengthy process, but then you wet it, and then it turns into almost, I would say, almost like a fiberglassy kind of texture, but it's 3/4 inch or an inch thick or something like that. The cloth is, and it bolts together with the seals.
Oh, really?
And then so you just lay it in the ditch, bolt it to the ditch, or trench it. So it's a neat little thing. Right off of Highway 20, right before you get into the town of Hallwood.
Oh, okay.
When you go with 3/4 inch, what type of life do you expect with normal wear and tear?
I think it's a pretty long lifespan on that material, you know, probably, I'm just gonna
Yeah,
guess
I think the literature said at least 20 years, but it's got a polyurethane lining on the bottom, and then it's got fibrous mesh, and then it's infused with concrete. So it, to me, it's like feels like a piece of Kevlar that floats into the ditch, and then it gets fastened, and it's definitely waterproof.
It doesn't, 3/4 inch doesn't sound like a
Well, it's
20-year.
it's got to be charged.
Fiber in it.
Yeah, 'cause it's got the fiber, it's got the fiber in it. So it's probably equal to 4 inches of regular.
it's a woven fabric that's infused with like a high cement in there to bond it all together. So it's not just like a 3/4 inch concrete like skin coat. It's not like that.
All right. Any questions? This one? Okay, Andy's making a motion.
Second.
Don's gonna second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None? Okay, great. Yep.
Yes.
Don't go far, Kyle. I think I'm gonna get some questions.
Item 5. Receive a presentation, consider adoption of resolution 2024-20, certifying the final environmental impact report for the new Boulders Bar Dam atmospheric river control spillway project. Stopping related CEQA findings. Willie.
Okay, so I'll say many years ago now, this board authorized us to go do the planning, engineering, and design of the ARC spillway. About 6 weeks ago, we presented you where we were in the process. We have an upcoming meeting on February 18th. We'll have Marty Ralph of the Scripps Institute to give you an update on the FERO side of things and the water control manual update. But what we have in front of you today is for you to adopt the CEQA coverage and the CEQA work we've done the last couple of years on this project. What this will allow us to do is we'll have the CEQA completed and adopted today. Then we'll be able to go further acquire permits. One would be the amendment with FERC, that we need to amend our original license. 2 would be to apply for a 401 certification with the State Water Resources Control Board, amongst other permits with CDFW and the Army Corps and others. That's what we're asking you to do today, is to basically adopt the CEQA and authorize myself or my designee to obtain these other permits.
Any questions of the board? Questions from the public? Okay. Would you like to make a motion?
To approve. I'll second it with the comment that let's just keep the pedal down on this project.
Dean, you heard that? All right.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Item 6, review of financial statements and detail of general and power systems fund for October 2024. Consider approval final budget adjustment for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. Who's going to do the presentation?
Curtis.
Good morning. No, we've been waiting all year for this moment, the December final budget adjustment. There it is. Similar structure to what we've done in years past. I'm going to start with the most recent set of monthly financials, which is going to be through October of 2024. Just given the way the calendar is, it was a little too soon to close November. So we'll hold a normal ABP meeting in January and close November and get those financials to you in late January. Then we'll move into the final budget adjustments for the current fiscal year. One takeaway, and I'll lead with it, we can watch for it throughout the slide deck, is the adjustments are not going to be in our operating expenses. We've got a pretty good idea of what we spend annually to maintain and operate the project, both in the power systems and general fund. The adjustments are going to be in our team projects and our capital improvement projects. Those are really what causes our budget to vary from year to year, are those larger projects. All the normal routine stuff, we've trended fairly well, and you'll see there's not much of an adjustment to any of that in this December final budget adjustment. And because it is, most of the adjustments are the capital improvement projects, I brought a team with me today to talk about our two biggest capital improvement projects, the Colgate tunnel outage and the power systems headquarters. Those two projects are nearly 40% of the budget. So those two projects are adjusting. It's going to move the needle on the overall budget. So I thought it was worthwhile to hear about those projects. Now I'll steal this if you don't mind. So we'll jump in. Sorry, we'll get this out of your way. Maybe do that. All right. We'll start with the financials through October. If you're looking at this sheet for the first time, what we have here from left to right is final budget versus actuals for a couple of years of history. We're going to focus our attention on the far right column. These are actuals through October 31st, 2024 against our annualized budget. Starting at the top, we have revenue. Power systems is going to be in blue. General fund is in green. Starting with power systems, we're at 71.1 million against a budget of 212.6. A strong start to the year as we expect in July and August when demand is high. Prices are a little bit elevated. We're still benefiting from strong resource adequacy and carbon-free prices, but the budget reflects that too. So we're not blowing this budget out of the water. We're getting better at forecasting how much this market is changing, and we're tracking against that. General fund revenue at 1.1 million against a budget of 23.8. A couple of things to note there. There's some missing activity. They're still waiting for the first quarter interest calculation from the Yuba County Treasury. So this is probably going up to another million. And there's some incoming grant revenue, and that's the bulk of the $23 million budget is the interest income in our incoming grant revenue. We've got a little bit more activity and incoming grant revenue to book as well. So we will book those and bring it to the AVP and call those out when we've made those adjustments. Revenue in total, we're at 72.2 million against a budget of 236.3. Trending well. We're going into kind of a lull in power systems revenue. We'll look at that in the next slide. Power systems expenses now. Again, power systems in blue. Expenses are at 22.5 million against a budget of 74.4. We'll look at the detail later, but again, we have tracked the maintenance and operation expenses well. Capital improvement projects are trending under budget in some projects, but we need to make an adjustment on a couple of our larger ones, and that's the ones that we'll hear about later. On the general fund side of things, we're at 20.2 million against a budget of 74.6 million. It's been a little slower start to the disbursements for the community impact grant program, but we know those are coming. We're north of 70 grant agreements that we've currently committed to. They're working through those scopes. We know the reimbursement requests are coming to us. Just a little slower to start this fiscal year. Again, part of our commitment to the program is working with the partners to update our schedules. We can then get better at our cash flow forecasting, and we will aim to present that.
Can you just, for the public, just explain the 30%? I think that's 30%.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're 30% of budget through October in power systems, and just north of 27% of budget.
Which is about where you would, pretty close to the actual budget. I mean,
it's trending, yeah, it's pretty close. Our goal is to finish the year at 90%. We would love to leave the 10% contingency on the table. So we're so we're right about there. We're looking 30% of the way, and we're 30% of budget. We're trending well. Total agency combined expenses were 42.7 against a budget of 149. Quick note, that final budget column is the June budget. We will revise that if there's an improved final budget at the end of this item. What does that mean for net effect on reserves? At the end of October, we'd have 29.5 million to contribute to our reserve policy and those various designations. We forecasted 87.2. We get a strong start in July and August. We then weather the storm is important fun, but we weather the storm through the winter. We're revenue is a little lighter. There's less flow requirements. We're not moving as much water through the generators. We take them offline and do capital improvement projects. So we strong start, bit of a lull in the middle of the year, and then we wait to see what spring offers us. So we're on our way. While I'm hearing something I didn't have available for the AVP committee, our overall reserves balance. We're wrapping up the audit, and I guess that's 2 weeks in the first week of January. We'll have the auditors on site, the AVP committee, to finalize their draft financials. including the updated reserve policy note. We've incorporated the reserve policy changes that we made last year into the audited financials. The reserves total is at $444 million after a $98 million net income last year. So another strong year because of power systems revenue is really the big driver. So this $29.5 million would be on top of that 444. Our reserve target will also be increased as part of that reserve policy. It's now a rolling reserve target for that last designation that saves for capital improvement projects, because it tracks with our capital improvement plan. It looks at the next 5 years, gets an average and doubles it. So we've got 2 years of cushion in our reserves. So still very strong from a reserve standpoint. Now we'll dive into a little more October financial detail. This is power systems revenue. What this chart is doing is looking at prior months and comparing them across fiscal years. We're going to focus on October. They came in at $9.3 million. It's down from July through September, of course, because there's less water moving through the system and prices aren't as high because it's not 100 degrees. But generation was slightly over forecast because we had the water, we were able to move it, but the prices were then not as high because there was more supply and it wasn't 100 degrees. So that explains kind of the drop in the current year for October. But comparing this October to past Octobers, we're still benefiting from strong resource adequacy and carbon-free premiums. It's really raising the revenue floor per month in power systems because those products are priced so high for us that we're capturing those.
Why don't you explain the January thing 2 years ago?
Yeah, January 2 years ago, that'd be January 2023. This is a reflection of how much of an impact natural gas can have on our prices in the ISO market. This was the deep freeze in Texas and significant natural gas issues caused the price to spike. We didn't do anything operationally different. We were just available and prices spiked. So it speaks to the variables that we're subjected to, whether it be hydrology or market prices. This is when it goes well, is we had a record month in January. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but that natural gas component is so strong that we ended up with over 30 million in revenue. I wish I could forecast that that's going to happen again. Just can't do it. But that is the point of having high availability numbers, our generators. So when an event like that does happen, we're online and we're able to capture the prices.
But it also means that because we run our own generators, when we took it over, we didn't tell PG&E just keep running it. We ran it ourselves.
So let me just, I think Charlie, what you're saying, sorry, Director Matthews, what you're saying is we're not locked into a fixed price per megawatt type of purchase from someone like a PG&E or a SMUD. We're selling the power ourselves, independently marketing it, so we can take advantage of these types of spikes. That's what I think you're trying to put.
That's what we're going to put up there.
Okay, gotcha. You're good.
Yeah, I always thought that was because it was my very first month on the.
Well, where have you been since?
All right. General fund slide. This one is not as exciting in a year where we don't have record transfers. There just wasn't the opportunity to do those transfers. So the only activity we see on this slide, because it's looking at operating revenue, which is just water sales. You see the member unit water supply agreements in here, which we know those amounts is going to be just shy of 600,000 through the year. So there's not a lot of monthly activity to talk about on this slide. So we'll jump into expenses. This is going to be agency combined expenses through October 31st. We'll, similar to the power systems revenue slide, is comparing months against prior years. We'll look at October, 11.5 million. It's fairly flat with September. A couple of notes about this slide, though. So this is telling part of the story. And really, this slide is why we have been working within the AVP committee to demonstrate our core kind of operating expenses compared to our non-routine kind of discretionary expenses, the grant program. The capital improvement projects are discretionary in the sense you can phase those. You don't necessarily have to do those immediately. You can plan. We're not seeing that split in this chart. We're just comparing overall expenditures. So we're working on some tools, and I'll go over a couple of those to show exactly where these expenses are coming from. because this could be a little misleading. So it's higher than previous Octobers, or last two Octobers, but it's really because of the investments in the capital improvement projects, particularly in power systems. The power system headquarters is spending at roughly $4 million a month. So that's elevating the expenses. Look at it, this kind of standalone, it looks like our expenses just went up and we don't know if they're going to come down. Is that our new normal? So we're changing how we're presenting this information a little bit to strip away those one-time projects and look at our core expenses. Other examples of why this can be slightly misleading is we'll go back 3 Octobers ago. Definitely an outlier there. It's higher than even the 11.5 in the current year. Our house sediment removal project was like a $6 million project. The permit window was September to November. The bulk of the costs were in October. So it created this spike that looks like an outlier. And on its own, it doesn't tell the story. So we're going to work on presenting expenses. This is part of it. We're going back in time and building data. So over time, I'll be able to compare past years as well, because we weren't quite tracking it like this before. But what we're doing here is we're plotting routine expenses in both the power systems and general fund. This is stripping away all the non-routine projects. Those are the large maintenance projects that just don't end up with a capital asset at the end, like the sediment removal project, and backs out capital improvement projects like the power system headquarters. This burgundy red line, whatever you want to call it, is last fiscal year compared to the current fiscal year. What we're seeing in the current fiscal year is the operating expenses or routine expenses are fairly flat month to month. We know what it is. It's trending fairly well to prior year. There's a bit of an uptick in October. I want more data to see, is that really an outlier? Let's get 3 or 4 years of data. We are going back in time and we're building that with old financials. But that's the kind of data point that we would call attention to and explain why there's a deviation from what looks to be a trend. So it's something that we're working towards. Same thing in general fund, where it's going to back out relicensing efforts, your community impact grant program. Those, it's not the expenses that keep the doors open. That's what we want to isolate are those expenses. If you had to tighten the belt, what expenses are remaining and are we keeping those costs under control? So we'll continue to graphically show that in future monthly slide decks. Slightly different lens to look at operating expenses versus our discretionary expenses. This is the stacked chart that is looking at our community impact grant program. The total bar is the all of the agency expenses. So the roughly 11.5 in October is the full bar, the blue cap portion there on top, the expenses related to the community impact grant program. You see in July, there was not much activity in the grant program. We believe there's a little bit of invoice fatigue as we try to close prior fiscal year and we're beating down their door to get their June invoices. We see this lull in July. It's the 2nd or 3rd July in a row we've seen this. I think it's just going to be a pattern. But we're seeing the activity pick up and the disbursements are increasing as well. So we'll keep this chart in here just for reference. Looking at the monthly results now, this slide plots 2 data points per month, revenue in blue, expenses are in red. As we mentioned before, strong start to the year, July and August, strong power systems revenue. Lower expenses because we want the hands off the units. That's not what we're going to do a capital improvement project in power systems, of course. It is elevated a little bit in August just because the Trilla bond payment comes in August. So you see that spike. Back that out and then August expenses look a lot like July's. We see the lines cross here in October where expenses were in excess of revenue in the month of October. We're not spooked by this. This is a trend that we see because revenue comes down in power systems because, like we mentioned before, that movement is much water. And we're working on these capital improvement projects. You see increased expenses with reduced revenue. You run the risk of a couple of months with small net losses. The years where we have not seen net losses through this fall, winter time period is just because revenue has surpassed expectations so much. It happened to clear expenses. It wasn't an operational change that we did. We know what structure we need to follow to capture revenue and maximize revenue while getting our work done. So we take these small net losses as kind of the nature of the business. So what does that mean for net effect on reserves? So this is the rolling chart that kind of provides some context to that number that we looked at on the agency-wide summary sheet. Started off strong in July, 17.6 million would have been available for contributing to the reserves. Peaked in September, 31.2. We gave a little bit back in the month of October as we described. So as it stands, October 31st, 29.5 million would be available to sweep into that reserve policy. We continue working towards those reserve targets. That wraps up the information through the October financials. So I'll briefly pause for any questions before we talk about some of the changes in the fiscal year 2025 budget.
Anybody have any questions?
All right, very good. You need something?
Well, do you want to?
Or do you think they're already? Can they speak up?
Yeah.
All right, okay. All right, so we'll move on fairly quickly on the changes because the bulk of the changes are the presentations, and they have pictures and they're not me, so it could be more entertaining. We'll start with general fund revenue. A reminder, operating revenue and general fund are water sales. Non-operating revenue is both the incoming grant revenue and interest income. I have a couple of, I've got a year of actuals, final budget for last year. This is the June budget, and this is the final budget. So this is the budget that's currently in place and was approved in June, and this is the requested changes that we're asking for approval on today. So we'll focus kind of on this column to show percent of change, and where it varied, I'll explain it, and then we'll get to the presentations. In operating revenue, no change because it's just a member unit water supply agreement, so we know what those costs are. There's no DWR water transfer. There's no change to operating revenue and general fund. A small reduction in non-operating revenue, just truing up the incoming grant activity where we were able to bill a little bit more as of 6/30, so we didn't need that budget in the current year. We just made a small adjustment there. On the power system side, no change in operating revenue, where operating revenue is power sales. There's no new variable that we know of that could improve our forecast. We still feel as good about our June one as we do our December forecast. We did have a fairly significant change in non-operating revenue. And I'll step back to prior years. So the budget was 238. It's up to 4.2 million. That's almost a 1,700% increase. Remember that change was also a reflection of the change in the reserve policy, where we now have reserves that are exclusively for general fund, exclusively for power systems. So we split those reserves, and those reserves are earning interest income. So power systems now sees their interest income come through non-operating revenue. So that's a structural change that we made. The increase, though, from the June budget to the December budget, this 122% increase, is the recognition of the amount of the $50 million DWR grant that we intend on capturing this year. That grant is part of the early implementation of the voluntary agreements. There's a list of projects that were eligible to bill to draw down that $50 million from DWR. We have chosen the tunnel outage because we believe that that project will be able to capture most of the $50 million, if not all of it, in the time period that that grant is available. So there's a couple of other projects that we get in a pinch towards the end of the grant. We can start going for other things, but that's what we're seeing in power systems. Non-operating revenue is a $50 million grant offsetting some Colgate tunnel outage costs. That's a great story to tell since we're about to ask for a budget increase on the tunnel outage. So it's offset some. Remember that $50 million grant at the end of the slide. Moving on, we're trying. All right, power systems budget. Not going to spend a ton of time on this because we're getting closer to the presentations, but we will focus on total operating expenses. These are the ones that we want cost control on, tight cost control, where it's the capital improvement projects that really change our budget year to year. So it's only 1% reduction from the June budget to the December budget. What we've done is taken some of the larger kind of non-routine maintenance projects off the table. We budget aggressively, continue to budget aggressively in the best case scenario schedule that we have and a fully staffed schedule, what that would yield. So when you are down an engineer and everything doesn't go as absolutely streamlined as possible, which it never does, there's an opportunity to take a few projects off the table, which helped us mitigate the budget increase that we're going to ask for on tunnel outage and power system headquarters. So operating expense down 1%, capital improvement projects up 16%. You'll hear why in a minute. So overall power systems budget will be about 8 million or 10%. So with that, I'm going to turn it over now. We'll start with tunnel. Does that work?
Sounds good.
We'll start with tunnel outage. We'll give you an update on where we are on this project. It'll explain why there's a request for a budget increase. Not on this one, that's in the headquarters. So before we get started, if you guys wouldn't mind introducing yourself, I'll forget to do that. Introduce if you're presenting on tunnel outage or power system headquarters.
I'm Casey Peterson, a hydro engineer with the agency, and I'm project managing the Colgate Tunnel outage.
I'm Aaron Usselman, your senior mechanical engineer in charge of the CPSV, penstock shutoff valve modification project, and associated penstock componentry sections.
My name is Matt Murray. I'm a senior hydro engineer. I'll be contributing on helping support some of the CPSV construction as we move in building.
All right, so just a reminder of the project overview. So the Colgate Tunnel and Penstock section, it goes from Bullard's Bar down to the Colgate Powerhouse. It consists of about 5 miles of rockline tunnel and about a mile of penstock on either side. And then the primary staging and work areas are going to be down at the CPSV location, which is just uphill from the Colgate Powerhouse in Dobbins. There's a surge chamber, which is just a little bit uphill from that. Then you go into the tunnel, and the next staging area is the base of New Bullard's Bar Dam, and then the final staging work area will be up at the disposal site that's above the dam off of Marysville Road.
Why the dam is so efficient with the Colgate Tunnel, the extra drop.
Yeah, so down at the Colgate Powerhouse, we have, as you guys know, 2 Pelton units, and so that change in elevation from Bullard's Bar Dam down to Colgate Powerhouse is what allows us to make that revenue down at the Colgate Powerhouse and keeps our agency alive, per se. And so during this presentation, we're going to go over first the primary purpose of why we're taking the outage out, just in general, the opportunity work that we'll be doing, taking the opportunity of having the water conveyance system dewatered since it is a rare opportunity. We'll discuss the generation effects, the contract protections that we have in place to make sure we get the Colgate Powerhouse back up and running in time, the permitting and compliance associated with the project, and then finally the bid submissions that we received in October. I'll pass it over
Casey,
to
real quick,
yeah.
I'm sorry, can you go back up?
Yeah.
I just want the board members to know what that picture is. Could you explain to them what they're seeing?
Yeah, so that picture is from the 1974 outage. We had to take an outage only 5 years after the commissioning of the tunnel due to a rock fall. And so this picture here is some workers on top of our rock trap. So that's the rock trap within the tunnel that catches any debris that's traveling down the tunnel. And that prevents any debris from reaching the Colgate Powerhouse. And that's one of the things we'll be mucking out to during the tunnel outage to make sure it's available to catch any additional debris moving through. Yeah, it's really cool. We have a lot of pictures from that 1974 outage, and you'll see them sprinkled throughout the presentation too.
Okay, so a little bit on this, we call it a CPSV. It's a penstock shutoff valve or a penstock safety valve. I've used the term acronym interchangeably on that throughout my career. And they exist to protect the downstream section of penstock. So if you had a rupture anywhere between this tunnel portal and Colgate Powerhouse, this valve is what allows us to shut that river off without draining substantial amounts of volume through the tunnel. We have an additional valve upstream for tunnel protection purposes. This one is designed for penstock protection purposes. And originally was supposed to be installed in 1968. Funds got really tight at building of this initial wire DP complex, including the dam and powerhouse. This feature was trimmed from the project budget. It was relatively easy to trim at the time and didn't affect overall operations. There have been back and forth conversations with our regulator FERC on this topic back all the way into the 60s and 70s. And these penstock shutoff valves got drawn into a large amount of scrutiny after our San Francisco region had penstock failure in their region. So it triggered assessments of who has what. They reviewed ours and saw that it was included in the original license. It wasn't actually installed like it was supposed to be. That's how we got to where we got to. And in the 90s, we received a letter that largely said, put it in or file a license amendment. So the decision at that time was to install it. And in 2008, the valve you see in this picture was installed. It was attempted to be tested at that point in time where they would actually close the valve under what's called a transient condition, close it against flow. So they brought the units up to 300 CFS flow, close the valve. And when they did that, they actually saw in the bottom right a flange extrusion issue to where those two flanges between the penstock and the valve separated. And they separated by over 10 millimeters because it was enough to extrude the O-ring out of it. So not only did they separated a lot. At that point in time, that project was largely put on hold to do a complete reassessment and evaluation of the design and the installed system. So in approximately the 2016-17 window, when Willie got to the agency, this was one of them that he started on, was to lead an effort to do a complete redesign of this system or analysis of the system. What works, what doesn't work, what needs to be changed. And then we went through that whole process for a couple of years and we identified everything that needs to be changed. The big ticket items, we need a lot more stiffness in the flange joint. We need to relocate our air vacuum breakers, which are an ancillary air system that protect the downstream penstock. If it closes, it breaks the vacuum as that water is draining out. And we have no axial restraint system. There's nothing to hold that force that's trying to push that valve off the mountain. There's nothing holding it to the mountain. So those were kind of the three elements for that. And the goal is to have this valve fully protected, capable at the completion of this project, long-term project, not the tunnel outage, the long-term project. So this is an aerial view of kind of what we're looking at here. The vent valves that I mentioned that are those ancillary protective devices, you'll see them on the left. As the left arrow, they need to be on the downstream side of the valve, not on the upstream side of the valve. So that's a modification for this project. Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't you say they had the prints upside down?
Well, that's the best theory I've heard at this point as to why it is that way. The original designs had all the valves on the downstream side. For whatever the reason, in the 2008 window, they were not installed there, which is a pretty big problem. So that's roughly what we're looking at. And then axial restraint is something that was also a big elephant in the room. As that valve's going closed, it's got about a 7 million pound force trying to push the valve off of the mountain. And right now the penstock and the tunnel liner are the only things that restrain that force to keep it from moving. So this project introduces a thrust block concept to hold that in place and anchor it down into competent rock below. But installing a thrust block comes with some additional challenges to the site. So the little control building that you see there and underground utilities, all of that needs to be demoed and moved to make way for a big chunk of concrete. So we'll hop over to Matt and he can explain that a little bit better.
Yeah, so Matt Murray, Senior Hydro Engineer. We have kind of gone through a variety of design issues with this project, as Aaron's been alluding to. And one of those things was the geotechnical aspect of it. So we needed to figure out how to tie this thing back to the mountain somehow. So there's a couple different ways of doing that. We went through a feasibility analysis on a couple of different ideas. And what we resulted with is some really big anchors going straight down into the earth, right? So we're going to hold it down just by sheer mass concrete and then pulling it straight down. And to do that, we're trying to limit the amount of outage time. And you're talking about almost 3,000 yards of concrete that are going to go and encapsulate this pipe when it's completed. So what we're going to do is separate the project into 3 phases. During the outage, we were trying to minimize the projects to only what had to be done during outage, because this is going to end up probably being the contractor's critical path is getting the footing down for this. So we'll take the tunnel out of service. We will dewater. Aaron and his team will go in and they'll pull the penstock section out. They'll pull the valve out, get it out of there that we need. And then we're going to go and excavate a footing right there underneath all of these structures. And we'll try to get that built as quick as we can so that then Aaron can come back and put the new penstock and put the valve back into place with the adjustments that needed to be done. So that's phase 1 of the project. It's during the tunnel outage. Phase 2 of the project is going to be your second row of graphics there. And we're going to go through, and the contractor won't be as much under the gun as far as outage window. They'll be able to go in there and construct the concrete, I'll call it kind of a donut that goes over the top of the penstock, but doesn't actually bond it yet to the penstock. So they'll be able to put their anchor system in. We'll then cinch this thing down. So there's huge forces. There's 1 million pounds that go down 12 different anchors to hold this down to the ground. They're 200-foot deep anchors that are about 14 inches in diameter. They're enormous anchors that we're going to hold it down with. The geotechnical aspect led us to believe that we actually went up and did 2 borings up here, one on each side of the penstock. And we've actually found that the geotech underneath this thing is not great. There's a lot of faulting and a lot of natural anomalies in the soil. So they're actually expecting a little bit of settlement. We don't want to secure the penstock and pull it down until the settlement is done. Because if we had the final picture, which is the bottom, if we enclosed it all together, did that black piece, we would actually then pull those down and actually we'd be putting that pipe into shear, and we don't want to shear the pipe off. So we're going to basically watch it for a year or two, let the settlement complete, and then we'll have a final project. It'll be the 3rd phase, which is just going to be pour that black piece of closure concrete, if you will. And then at that point, we'll actually have the project completed, and we can actually go and test the valve that we're putting in during outage this next season. So I think that's kind of the bulk of what I have on this one. Some of the future things that can happen later on is we're going to put a stair tower. If you've ever been up there, you currently have to slide under the penstock to get to the other side. We'll put a stair tower so you can, get around the structure. We have the relocation of the control building. But those things can happen outside of outage. They're not critical path, to getting us back online and generating again.
And then while we have the tunnel and penstock system dewatered, we're going to make sure that the tunnel's in tip-top shape while we have the opportunity to do so. So in preparation for that, we performed 2 remote operating vehicle or ROV inspections in both 2019 and 2023 to assess the condition of the tunnel. And we took information from that along with some really detailed information we have from the outage in 1974. We compiled all of that information to plan for areas within the tunnel that could use reinforcement. Overall, our tunnel is in really good condition, but this is just extra opportunity to stop any erosion from continuing within the tunnel and just make sure that everything's, we prevent any unplanned outages in the future, because that's the goal here. So going into it, we have 4 different repair types that we're going in, and during that initial inspection, we'll true up the exact areas that are in need of reinforcement and then make any adjustments to those repair types as needed. So just making sure we go in with a nice, thorough plan so that we can really make this outage nice and efficient. And then while we're in there, we'll also be removing debris along the invert from the tunnel, as well as the rock trap. There's some debris on the surge chamber shelves, so we'll be cleaning that out. And then also performing any repairs to the rock trap as needed, since it has some decking on there that allows the debris to transition between the different bays of the rock trap. Other opportunity work that we'll be performing replacements and refurbishments of auxiliary valves over at the base of New Bullard's Bar Dam for the butterfly valve. So any valves that are greater than 4 inch in diameter, we'll be refurbishing, and anything less than 4 inch in diameter, we're just going to go ahead and replace to make things good up there. We'll be recoating the exterior of the butterfly valve at the base of the dam. There's also a penstock pier at the base of the dam that needs repairs, so we'll go ahead and do that during the outage. We'll also be doing interior spot coating repairs to the 33 concrete line sections within the tunnel as needed. There's also 2 leaking dresser couplings downstream of the CPSV, so we'll go ahead and get those seals replaced and get that repaired. And then there's also a 12 inch guard valve that was previously used to feed the Brown Valley Irrigation District. Currently, it's not in use, but we're using this opportunity to replace the guard valve, so if we find a need for it in the future, we're able to utilize that turnout. I'll pass over to you, Curtis and Drayton.
Sure, I got it. It's a generation effects. So the tunnel will be out. So Colgate will be out, both generators. So this will be a revenue impact from October through January. This is a quick table to estimate what that revenue impact is. Obviously, it's impossible to nail it down, but there's a couple of components that we need to factor in. Resource adequacy, of course, which we know that the prices are higher in recent years, but the tunnel outage has to be done. These estimates are using the most recent data for what those months might be valued at if we were to sell that in the strip for October 2025 through January 26. The next 3 are even more estimate than RA. RA, we're a little more confident in that number, but the rest of it all depends on hydrology. So it's both a market variable and a hydrologic variable. where the CAISO revenue is obviously going to be a function of megawatts produced, but so is carbon free because that's a premium kicker on top of the megawatt hours produced. So if it's a big time water year and there was a lot of water we could move through the generators, those numbers could go up. CAISO revenue will be kind of tamped down a little bit because there's going to be a lot of supply. Price is going to be down, but the carbon free kicker is still going to be available if we were operating through October through January. So all told, roughly $71 million in lost revenue. We hope, well, first of all, we hope for a drought. But if we can't get that, storing as much water in the reservoir as possible so we can generate in the spring and summer of 2026 would be best case scenario. Anything to add, Craig? You good there?
No, that's great. Yep.
Then overall timeline for the outage. So right now, purchasing is going through some paperwork submitted from the prime contractor. So if that's all reviewed in time, our plan is to provide the notice to proceed as early as tomorrow. So that notice to proceed number 1 will include their site preparations and staging preparations, getting just prepared for the outage, as well as procuring the materials needed for the outage, since a lot of the materials do have long lead times. And that's a big reason why we're providing this notice to proceed 1 so early, since we're not taking the outage until October of next year. But this allows them to make sure they have all materials, everything prepped and ready to go so that we can just get in there, get it done, and get out of there. So with that, we also have milestone 1 in place, and the deadline for that is 2 weeks prior to us even beginning draining the tunnel in Pinstock. And that milestone requires the contractor to have all of their equipment and materials staged on site that 2 weeks prior. And there's liquidated damages associated with this. So if they're not prepped and ready to go, then they're incurring costs every single day that they're not ready. And that goes up until 45 days. And then after that 45 days, we'll go into contract negotiations. So at that point, we can decide to either delay the outage a year or just completely terminate the contract if we're not comfortable proceeding. So that gives us some good protection there. The notice to proceed number 2, that's for the outage work. So that's the phase 1 of the Colgate-Pinstock shutoff valve modifications, the tunnel work, and the other opportunity work that I discussed. So we're planning on having that dewatering complete by October 7th, and that'll be when the notice to proceed number 2 is provided. Then moving down, we have the milestone number 2, and we're anticipating that in approximately February 6th, 2026. And that's all of the work completed necessary to rewater the tunnel in Pinstock and having the powerhouse ready to be re-energized. So we can start getting our revenue back up. And then following that, we have the notice to proceed 3, and that's phase 2 of those CPSV modifications. So that's phase 2 of that thrust block pour, and then construction of the vent valve access stairs, that new control building, and the permanent security fencing around the area. And then lastly, we just have substantial completion, which is anticipated to be September 17th of 2026. So that'll be the completion of phase 2 of the CPSV modifications and all the items listed above for notice to proceed 3. Just making sure that they complete the contract. And there's liquidated damages associated with both milestone 2 and substantial completion as well. So good contract protections in place to make sure that things run smoothly.
Why does it take 2 weeks to fill the tunnel?
Yeah, so for both filling and dewatering, it's a very slow process to make sure that we're not pressurizing the tunnel quickly or depressurizing the tunnel quickly, since that's when you introduce problems within the tunnel. Especially the dewatering process, depressurizing it can cause rock falls if we were to just open the valves full open and let the water just leave as fast as possible. That would introduce problems. So it's just making sure that we slowly re-enter the water and slowly drain it to make sure that we don't affect the tunnel negatively in any way. I'll pass it over to Jacob to discuss the permitting and compliance for the project.
Morning, Jacob Benrion, Environmental Manager. So for how big and complex this project is, the regulatory compliance strategy is relatively simple. First, we met our California Environmental Quality Act obligations by filing a notice of exemption. Luckily for us, this is maintenance and repair of existing infrastructure, so an exemption fit perfectly, and you guys approved the filing of that in May of this year. Then we got approval from our primary regulator, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Anytime you dewater a tunnel, it's inherently dangerous. You got to get approval from FERC, and we're updating some of our drawings for the CPSV. So they just need to review all that. We got that approval in June of this year, And then the last permit was essentially a wastewater discharge permit for all the tunnel dewatering water, and then throughout the outage, there's seepage water that's still coming out the tunnel. So this permit covers the treatment and the discharge of that water back into the river. And we received that in June of this year as well. So we are ready to go.
So what about the wet year? We have normal rainfall. No.
Well,
The tunnels closed.
yeah, so the discharge permit, they're just through the fracture zones and whatnot within the rock, water will slowly, and then since we are taking the outage in the winter time frame, there will be water slowly seeping into the tunnel. And so that allows us to make sure that we treat the water before discharging it back into the Yuba, since that water will be going through the construction zones and whatnot. And then in addition to that, there is a little bit of construction water too, just produced from the shotcrete and whatnot.
From a water management standpoint, our spillway system and our low level outlet were primary water conveyed still through Boyd's Bar at that time.
Even the 30-second update on what we did with the low level outlet the last year and a half.
Yeah, so we've done a handful of modifications and upgrades to that low level outlet system to be ready for this operation.
Okay.
All right, back to you, Kurt.
Okay, yeah, I'll handle this one. So as we mentioned, we received two bids. We started with 4 contractors through the pre-qualification process because we need contractors that have done this before and we have confidence in. This is a big project for us with significant implications, both getting this done and the revenue that we saw as at stake here. So we ended up with 2 bids, 6.8 million versus 79.9 million. These are higher than the engineer's estimate that was 40 to 45 or something like that. But we have some confidence that both numbers came in within shouting distance. They clearly understood the project. They took it seriously. They participated in the sidewalk. I'm sure they asked questions, and there's plenty of addenda follow up after the bid package went out. So we're confident that we have contractors that have done this work before and they understand our current project. So this Drill Tech Obayashi joint venture 76.8 is the low bidder. Assuming or anticipating approval of today's budget, we can actually get them under contract as early as tomorrow. We see that budget in place before we have them sign on the dotted line.
There's another cool picture from the 1974 outage too. That's our tunnel. I know, yeah. Very large.
Very good. Any questions for the tunnel outage team before we switch gears to the power system headquarters team?
I had a question. Are you guys planning on doing any maintenance to Colgate itself, the generators, or maybe the belt wheels while you got this down? Seems like it'd be a good time.
Yep. Yeah, you want to?
Yeah, I'll take credit down. Yeah, so another huge project that we're going to be doing in the powerhouse at this time is the turbine shutoff valves. Our primary focus is on anything that requires a dual unit outage, and our turbine shutoff valves do require a dual unit outage to be able to replace their upstream or their downstream service seals. So that is going to be the main focus in Colgate plant at that time, in addition to a handful of the other typical O&M tasks. But the rudders and turbines themselves, we're probably not going to be doing substantial overhaul on, because they can be independently isolated with these turbine shutoff valves during any other yearly service interval.
What's the size of those ball valves?
There's 78-inch spherical valves.
So what keeps you up at night?
Well, I have been thinking about this project since 2019. It was the first project that was given to me. So I think at this point we're feeling pretty darn comfortable going through it. And right now we are waiting for that new pinstock section, those flanges to be delivered. So I think once those are on site, then all my concerns will be eliminated.
I, of course, heard this presentation last week at the committee and had to rush out, and I felt bad I didn't compliment your whole crew on all the planning and engineering that's gone into this. It's very impressive and thorough.
Thank you.
And makes me feel confident about the project.
We definitely have a lot of eyes and ears looking at it, and we definitely appreciate that.
Get the cord on. Before we go on, next one.
Sure.
Okay. So Kean, I'm gonna put you on the spot, see if you want to make any comments on this because it's such a big thing. So I'll give you a few minutes, so I'll make my first thing I want to let you know is Aaron mentioned that I was handed the Colgate penstock shutoff part of this project when I started here 8 years ago. And what I thought it was a reassessment of the project, which was install a valve. And the only problem that I was aware of at the time was the valve leaked under testing. So we hired Black & Veatch and we did a bunch of assessment. And then midstream, I got other responsibilities at the agency and I handed it to Aaron. And Aaron's the one that dug up, hey, there's an actual axial restraint issue here and there's an air valve issue here. So back to what Director Bishop just said, the thoroughness of planning here, the thoroughness of engineering, I've got to give credit to Aaron and his consultants for catching those two major parts of the project. Another one is, you just saw the bid, what was it, Curtis, 76?
76 and change, yeah.
$76 million. So what we don't have here at this agency is approval of this board to take units out of service. You've delegated that to the general manager. We strategize and we take units out of service when we think it's most advantageous, whether it's in the fall because flows are low and the general power price is less, or whatever it might be. But today, you're not only approving a $76 million budget expense, you're also saying it's okay by us, this board of directors, to shut these units down, both units down for 4.5 months, basically, and foregoing about $75 million. So if you take all that together, you take 76 and 75 and you say, this is a $150 million investment you guys are making with lost revenue and actual dollars and cents investments. Think about that. You think about all the work we put into something like the ARC spillway, which is $290 million. This is about half of an ARC spillway. That's why we're giving you a 45-minute presentation on the budget adjustment, and so you know how serious we're taking this. Aaron mentioned earlier, I made him mention planning on using the low-level outlet for 4.5 months. He went ahead and did a bunch of upgrades there. This is not a, hey, let's take the units out this fall and fix the tunnel. This is this agency has been working on this since I worked at PG&E 8 years ago. So I wanted to communicate all that to you. And I think lastly, and maybe most importantly, in the strategic plan, we have hire and retain the best employees. Let's talk about retaining the best employees and the value you get from retention. You get more value from retaining employees if those employees are valuable. You create value in employees if they're doing things that are significant and challenging and they're learning from them. What we didn't do is bring these two engineers who are, I can't age discriminate and say young, but I can say they're early in their careers. You don't bring them in and say, hey, hold the flashlight for me while I fix this thing. What you do is you come in and say, do this thing, and we will monitor what you're doing. We will help you. And look at what they've done. Look at how they have commanded this presentation and have a knowledge of this tunnel, a knowledge of these subsystems and components, and they've had help. They've had Matt, they've had Ben, they've had others in this agency helping them along, but here we're investing in these employees and their knowledge. That way, when the rest of us retire and move on, 25 years from now, these two are going to know exactly what went down that 1 year that we took the tunnel out of service. So I want you to know we're making that investment too. So that's all I have to say. But Kean, any thoughts? Kean's been here 5 months now. So Power System Director Kean Summers, go ahead.
So in addition to retaining employees, I think it's also important for recruiting employees because these are sort of the jobs that I looked at on the outside and thought, I want to go work for that agency. That's an agency that's doing things and really getting the right work done. I'd also add on to that I think Aaron may have undersold a little bit about the work that's going on in the powerhouse. To your question, he is absolutely correct that we aren't doing anything to the runners, but that's mainly because we went through a comprehensive and real deliberate review of the condition of the powerhouse there and are targeting certain specific things. The actual wheels, in the last 2 weeks even, we've done some testing on those and not found anything wrong with them. They're in pristine condition. But we are going to do some upgrades to the electrical systems in the powerhouse. PG&E's got an upgrade that they're doing at the same time in there, just so we can minimize the outage time. And then I think that, Director Bishop absolutely nailed it, that we have a fantastic team working on this. In addition to those in the room here, the purchasing team, Justin's been quiet the whole time, but it's his leadership on the engineering manager that's helped us get through this, and really just a great team working behind the scenes as well as the folks that you're seeing in the room here today. So that's all I've got.
Thanks, Kean.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
I'll wait back. Can I ask you a couple questions first?
Yes.
How long will this outage be good for? When do you anticipate we'll have to do another tunnel outage.
Oh, what is it, 10 years hopefully, right, Casey? Then before we have to do another tunnel outage?
10, I'm thinking more like
30?
25.
Okay.
Yeah, at least.
So this is a long-term investment.
So let's talk about a tunnel outage versus a tunnel outage with significant capital work. It's one thing to take your tunnel out, 2 weeks to take it out and 2 weeks to fill it, a couple days to inspect it to make sure it's okay. FERC could ask us to do that anytime after 10 years generally, and they may if certain conditions warrant it. That's different than a tunnel outage for 4.5 months to do a significant amount of work that requires the tunnel out. I would say you're good for, I mean, this is my guesstimate, but if we can get this thing fixed right, Aaron, in this tunnel outage, you're good for 50 years as far as major work going on in the tunnel. Aaron, help me out here.
Yes, spot on. I intend to not do projects twice, and I don't want to do it again. So,
but we may have to take it out to inspect it at some point, but much smaller scale.
yeah, and once this valve's fully complete, if anything did require a dual unit outage, this valve can be used for that. And then it allows you to dewater the penstock while keeping the tunnel full.
Yeah.
And that saves you an additional 2 weeks on each end of that turnaround.
And now it's a day to dewater instead of a week.
Correct.
2 days.
You can dewater and water steel much faster than geotech.
As long as the air vents are on the right side.
As long as the air vents are on the right.
Go ahead. Oh, I had one more question, Charlie, and I'll get to you. So that estimate or that bid was for the tunnel itself, not including the valve? The valve's a separate?
No, it includes the valve.
That-
So
okay.
yeah, so that estimate, the only thing it doesn't include is phase 3 of that thrust block. So the final encapsulating the penstock, that's the only thing that's not included.
Okay.
So all of that other opportunity work that we're doing, all the tunnel work, all the CPSV work, all of that's in there. And that pre-qual that Curtis mentioned, that pre-qual, we did it in like a 3-part process. So we pre-qualified both the tunnel work, the CPSV work, and the coating work within the liner and the penstock to make sure that we are comfortable with all of those 3 disciplines and their experience related to those types of work.
And then is there any incentive for them to finish the work quicker so we can get back online?
No, we definitely evaluated that option and we went back and forth thinking about it, but we worried that that would result in some shortcuts and kind of put us at risk there. So we decided to just lean heavily on the LDs instead of doing the incentives. And Andrew, I don't know if you have anything to elaborate on that.
No, we did look at that. LB's liquidated again, just a lot.
Yeah.
Probably
So you guys are comfortable with that'll be adequate time and they'll have it done in that amount of time?
Yeah, because what's variable here is the scope of work. There's a focus on return to service. So that 76 point whatever number is all the scope they could potentially do. We could probably take some off the table once we dewater and really get eyes on the condition. There's not as much of that scope we're going to have to do, but the focus is get the unit back online, cram all the scope into that outage window that we have. Because if we start trickling into February and March, you see those revenue numbers start to creep up and it becomes a significant loss. Liquidated damages will be a drop in the bucket. Replacing equipment.
Yeah.
And since the primary purpose of the outage is to do that CPSV work and the tunnel work is opportunity, if they finish up the CPSV work early, we'll rewater and get our powerhouse back up and running. So yeah, so we're not letting the tunnel work take the critical path.
And then as a side question, will we be able to go into the tunnel and look at it?
Oh, we can arrange that for sure.
And could we, I noticed they had smoking in there in the 70s.
Not this time, personality.
One thing I wanted to add is we also we hired a construction management firm, so Dell International. We actually have our representative here from that's going to be leading that effort, and so they're helping contribute to this team. I just wanted to throw them a kudos. They've been along the ride with us for a couple of years now, and they're going to be significantly reducing, hopefully, our workload on the day-to-day operation up there, and we'll be hopefully acting more as owners, decision makers, and instead of actually trying to run the paperwork as much. So there's other components to the bid that are not directly encapsulated in the number you saw there that are supporting the project as well, and that's already incorporated into the budget adjustment if I'm not mistaken, Curtis.
Also, I'd like to say how enthusiastic you respond to each and every question. It's just unbelievable in today's society to see y'all light up.
This is a fun project. I mean, I think it's fun, it's hard, it's challenging, but it's also big, it feels important. It's all those things that you want.
And stuff of this size don't get built anymore. in general. So like we had major challenges with procuring flanges and penstock. We found one company in the United States that can make that section of
There you
penstock. Nobody in the United States could forge the flange, so I had to internationally source those. And just watching all the pieces come together, the supply chains that existed in the 50s and 60s don't exist in America anymore. And we just rebuilt some of those supply chains.
Right.
Well, thank you very much.
You might also touch, you said we had good information when you did one of the tunnel outages. I thought you also said you had very poor information and results on the last tunnel outage we had. I think you ought to tell us about the difference between the two and why the one that we don't have much information on. We also, they didn't pick up these items that we have to do now.
Yeah, so in 1974, they took that outage due to a rock fall. So there is a really high emphasis on the tunnel in general. So we have multiple geologic reports amongst just engineering reports and a bunch of pictures. There, we have multiple books with pictures at each of the stations or each 100 foot within the tunnel. Whereas in 2008, their primary focus was that CPSV and getting that valve installed. And there is rumors that there was a report at one time, and we've tried to track that down through various contacts with PG&E, and we have access to some emails that just talked about informally the experience during the 2008 outage, but unfortunately we just could not get our hands on that report. So we have contacted people that were involved with that outage to just ask them about their experience, and we do have hands on some field notes from the outage. So we've gathered all the information that we could, but unfortunately there's no really solidified report that thoroughly explains how it went and what they saw. And for this outage, especially for the documentation, we have very clear requirements for what we're expecting for that documentation. So coming out of this, we'll have a plethora of photos, video, and just really clear documentation moving forward. So if and when we do take another outage for any major work, we'll have a lot of information going into that one from this one.
And was there also something about a lawsuit and something about pumping that they didn't need, or?
Yeah, there is some, I don't know the details, but there's some drama, for lack of a better term, for the dewatering of the seepage water in the tunnel in 2008. But for this one, that was a result from multiple contracts working on the job under Yuba-Water. Whereas this one, we have a prime contractor, and the CPSV work, the tunnel work, and the coating work is all under that prime. So that'll eliminate any of those conflicts that happened in 2008.
And just to be clear, the litigation that Director Matthews was talking about was between contractors. It wasn't against the agency.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just give you my 2 cents on the lack of knowledge or data from the 2008 inspection. Like Casey mentioned, the 1974 inspection was due to a geologic problem inside the tunnel. So a lot of attention was spent on the geology inside the tunnel. The 2008 outage was to install the penstock shutoff valve. We were still under PG&E's control at the time. So PG&E's investment was going to be focused on what the scope of the outage was, and that's installation of that valve. I'm sure people walked through the tunnel and looked at it, but and there's some speculation there was a report. But even if there was a report, it probably wasn't as thorough as what they intended to do in 1974. So that's probably why you don't see a very detailed report. We will get one from this inspection or this outage coming up.
Yeah. Well, 71 million is a lot of money, but what happens if you have to do this in the summertime? Run your numbers and it costs you on the outage in the summer.
Yeah, price double, right?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, in the winter too, you have the chance of natural gas issues too, so the price goes up during that as well. So I mean,
and you're gonna be doing it under emergency situations, so that's gonna cost you more.
That's a vote for doing it well planned, scheduled, best knowledge going into it.
And really, as long as we're not spilling, we're gonna make that power later on anyway, right? It's all the water's in the dam.
So let's be clear, that's not necessarily true. We still have to deliver water into the lower Yuba River and meet the minimum flow. So we will be putting water out of the low level outlet and not generating power with it. We have to.
Yeah.
Now, how much that is will depend on the type of water you're in.
Yeah. Okay.
But the low level outlet has problems?
No.
You fix it.
and it didn't necessarily have problems. What we did is we went in and ensured that it was in, what I'm going to use Casey's term for another subsystem, it was in tip-top shape. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't in, hey, we haven't really used this for 4 months straight for 15, 18 years. Let's just go ahead and fire it up in 2025. We said, let's go in, let's inspect it, let's do some upgrades to it, let's run it for what, Aaron, you ran it for a day or two?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And make sure it can operate as expected. It was just preparatory work to ensure that it's reliable. Now, the team's kicking me because the low-level outlet has some design issues. It's limited in its capacity, but its functional capability is there. Is that fair?
What's its maximum flow, really?
Aaron, max without the restriction and then
Max without the restriction, it was supposedly on the order of 3,200 CFS. Max with the restriction is approximately 1,250.
So we're at 1250 is the max used during this outage? And our requirements?
Unless we.
For, you said some water years will have different requirements.
Oh, our requirements are the accord minimums, and we can meet the accord minimums for that time of year with the 1250. Now, if we get a really wild winter and we get up into the flood pool, I mean, if you get up to 1902, you can always use the spillway. And then if you get into the flood pool of 17 or 18 elevation, then I mean, we have the gates to keep out of the flood pool. So we're safe on the high end of flows because we'll still have the spillway. Okay, I want to let you know, like, this is a lot of detail, but this is what I want this board to know and understand when you're making big decisions like this. Now, this decision is a budget adjustment, but you're approving this significant project as part of the budget adjustment. So I think it's justified to have this type of dialogue, and I appreciate it.
All right, very good. So one more exciting project to hear about. We'll kick it over to Matt Murray to talk about the power system headquarters.
Jumps into the chair. I love
I didn't want to take KCC quite yet, just in case you come back up. But so again, Matt Murray, I'm working on this project right now, trying to get our power systems headquarters up and running and us to move into it. So I just want to give you a December update. Just go ahead and kick it off on the first slide. So just a real quick refresher on what we're doing up there. So we're building the whole campus. I did inherit this from Kyle. Kyle's back behind me, Kyle Morgado. So feel free to chip in, Kyle, but he'll probably leave me out to dry like he has. So anyway, so we're building a new admin building. We're going to try to move approximately, I don't know, 35 to 45 employees, that reside in desk space, or reporting, we'll report to this location up to this new admin building. The next building is the warehouse. We're going to have kind of a split warehouse that will have a conditioned side and a non-conditioned side for storage. We have a variety of warehouses across the project. We're going to try to consolidate them and have it in one location that's protected and monitored, and try to get better at organizing our things. And then we have a maintenance shop that we're going to add on. Right now, you guys have been to Colgate. I'm sure at one point or another, you see that we're trying to do our equipment maintenance down in the basement. It's not ideal, so we're going to build a new maintenance shop for our fleet. And then in the back, we have a barn, or just a covered storage area. It also is a place for all of our solar panels that we're installing as part of this project. And then we have a water tower on the top. I know that a lot of folks have, probably you guys have heard or fielded questions regarding that water tank. It's 150,000 gallon water storage intended for fire suppression should we ever need it. And then lastly, we have that's worth mentioning is this communications tower. I have it drawn right here in purple. It's right next to the warehouse, but one of the large project changes that we've actually decided to do is to get it away from the building, so we're shifting it up on the top of the hill. So with that, I'll go ahead and jump in. It is a 20-acre site. We started CEQA and permitting almost 4 or 5 years ago now, and basically rezoned it, got all the CEQA done, and basically we've improved about 13 acres of that 20-acre parcel up there. Okay, so December update. Last time I visited you guys, it was in May, and I gave you a brief presentation then, and so this will kind of be a similar flow. So right now, the admin building, here's a picture in the front. I don't know if you remember the renderings, but we're coming along. Most of the exterior is complete. The only thing that we're kind of still waiting on really is you can see the tie-back wrap on that. That has an aluminum metal siding. It's kind of a decorative siding that'll go up that side member. And then we have some metal siding that we're actually going to install over that yellow portion on the front. So most of it's done. We're really waiting for landscaping and pavement markings at this point. I mean, it's for those of you that have visited the site, it's come a long way. So on the interior, we're almost done with all the paint. We've already polished most of those concrete floors. All the interior walls are up, obviously, so if we're repainting them. We got bathrooms, that are complete. The fixtures are installed. I mean, it's coming along. The things that are kind of still remaining in there is we got to get the carpet into the carpet tiles. I mean, it's very quick and easy work that has to get finished. And we're pulling a lot of electrical and communication wiring right now. So all the main routes have been pulled, but right now the boxes are open. We need to actually get all of the wires pulled and terminated. So coming along pretty well on the interior. On the warehouse, shop, and barn, we're kind of collectively grouping those together. All those building systems are complete, so structurally they're all up. We have roofs over them. They're generally watertight. We're finding a couple things in some of those wet weather storms. So, having a wind blowing sideways for a couple of hours, we're finding all of the wet spots. So we're navigating that. The floors are all done, generally speaking. I think we're pretty well done with the whole building systems at each of those structures. They're working on interior paint, and they're pulling electrical and column wiring in each of those. So, network and security system stuff that's going in along with our actual electric. Just recently, we actually just pulled all the main feeders to all the buildings. So we actually have all the main feeders, and we are expecting power to be brought in by PG&E probably in about 3 weeks. So that's a significant hurdle. So once we get over that, then we have lights and we can start testing everything that we've been installing. So let's keep going. So this is the rendering. This is the last rendering I showed you in April. I hope that this will play for those on the video, but we go ahead and play it. So this will kind of show you where we were. So obviously we still didn't have roofs on any of these buildings. The first building was the mechanic shop. The second building that we're covering over about now is the warehouse, and then the admin building down here on the front. So on the site, you can see we're gravel everywhere. We haven't, we have virtually, none of our permanent drainage systems were completed. So now I'm going to show you a video. We actually had our comm team go up there and take a video just a couple of days ago. So now you can see the barn right here is done. We have the solar panels installed. The roof systems and buildings are covered and complete. And we've got pavement across about 80% of the site. The contractors actually opted to keep some of it as gravel for now because they need some area that they can, store things. But we're wrapping up, most of the project. We're weathering this weather pretty well. A lot of the improvements that we're making are going a long way, but coming along. So just a couple photos of the outside of the admin building, give you an idea kind of what it's looking like. We have a nice back patio area that we'll be able to use, for the future. This is where a lot of the staff's going to be coming and going every morning, especially, the maintenance staff will be coming through this area. This is the back side of the building. It shows you, they're just installing a drain line, but it's just a kind of a good photo that showed the look of the building, the stacked stone on the bottom and then the finished sides. So on the interior, don't mind the dust. We're just getting to the point now where we're starting to actually clean the inside to the point where we're actually walking on sticky tape when you go in to try to keep the dust down. But it's even cleaner now. We've got polished floors in there, similar to kind of a a Costco floor, if you will, that polished concrete look. And just on the side, just kind of showing you how far along some of the features are. We literally have one shower in the building for use for the staff if they need it. If they come in the field dirty or whatever. So that just showing you the fixtures are already hanging on the wall. So just some outside photos again, just to give you some depiction. So that's the scope, scale, size. Of those buildings. For those of you that haven't seen it recently, they're coming together. Inside, give you the idea of the size of that warehouse. The far bay that you're looking at is the non-conditioned side. So that'll be our bulk warehouse area. We're working on trying to figure out shelving and racks and things like that. So the heavy equipment shop, most of the systems are complete again in this building. I need to actually get on and start ordering our vehicle lift and tire changer and some of those things that we need for our mechanic to get going. And then the barn in the back, give you an idea of how large that barn is. It's going to get a lot of our equipment that we have spread out across the project, from getting sun damaged and, sitting out there kind of sun rot. It's going to get it, covered, and we'll be able to monitor it. It'll be under this new fence, so we know that it won't be getting damaged. And then over on the right side, you can actually see the water tower up on the top. And then this is actually a day that we're delivering our fuel tanks. So this is our diesel tank that was coming in. We'll have a fuel station like we do down at Colgate. and then we'll decommission the Colgate fuel station and move it up here. So we'll have about 5,000 gallons of diesel and 2,000 gallons of gasoline for the fleet use. The water tower, just special note, it's 150,000 gallons. I know there's a lot of concern about it from the locals. We filled that slowly, so we actually filled it. It is full now. And to my knowledge, we didn't have any local impact, just for everyone's knowledge. We filled it over the course of about a month and just kind of, a couple thousand gallons each day, and just to kind of monitor and make sure we weren't making any impacts, and also to make sure that it wasn't leaking. So it's watered up. It's technically available for use. I toured the fire departments up in the area. They came up and they kind of looked at it. They've actually guided me on how they want their fittings and everything up there, because we've got a couple points of connection for them in the future, should they ever need it to fight fire up in the local area. So that'll be a local use if they need it. We have a hydrant down the street that's going to be there. I haven't highlighted the bus stop. The bus stop that we were trying to keep on the property. It was there before, and so that was one of the ideas, was to not take away from the community. So we went ahead and improved it, made it safer, and so that's actually mostly in. They've actually even got the little shade structure in for the kids to go sit under when they're waiting for the bus. So that's in. I didn't take a photo of it, but if you drive by, you definitely will see it.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
On the water tank? Does it have a top on it, or is it with a dip tank as well? Will they can dip out of it? And
No.
if not, can we
It's covered.
look into putting one up there? Because we, at Aqua, there was a company that makes these dip tanks that we could plumb into that, that CDF helicopters can dip out of.
We currently didn't. That tank, structurally, for it to be sound, needs the top.
Yeah.
Just the way that those things, where you see all the bolt patterns. So structurally, it needs the top to hold it together. So if we wanted to modify it for that, I can take a look into it. That is something I'll look into just to see if it's feasible. But yeah, right now, there's a point of connection directly on the tank, or right next to it, where we have the main plumbing fittings. And then we also have a hydrant down on the road that they could use that easy.
Yeah.
But as far as helicopter access now,
So it's something we could probably look into CDF grant to add it, one of just.
I'll see if that tank would support, or if you'd have to have some sort of different dip tank for it. I don't know if that would work. Because that bag or bucket, or is it storable?
It almost looks like a shipping container made into, and it's all plumbed in, and it can be run basically with a cell phone, where they can, I guess the pilot can order water up to fill in this, and they can get out of it.
I'll definitely look into that.
I think it could be a separate tank.
Yeah, it'd have to
Near
be
this
separate, but it'd be, that could,
feed it.
they could use that water to feed it.
I'll take a look into it and see.
Okay.
Yeah. So kind of past the picture portion, moving into the project management side of the house. So we have a full-time inspector on site. Let me go through my logos on the side. So I put Hilber's logo. It's a local Yuba City contractor. They've been pretty good to work with throughout the whole project. I said pretty good. They're great to work with. So we work with them every day. They've got a job site trailer. I interface with them daily. PBK is our architect, and they've been managing all of the engineering and architectural firms that are under them. NV5 is our testing company that's doing third-party testing to make sure we meet all of our specifications and state standards. And then SR Diversified is a full-time inspector that we have on site when I can't be there also. He's there monitoring and doing our daily reports and basically documenting everything. So, and the Trimble project site is where I'm actually, I'm just throwing a caveat out there. We're actually going to be using this new project site. We have training actually in a couple of hours for the tunnel outage. I ran it as a pilot project to run this project through it, and it's been great to work with. So it documents our RFIs and submittals and all of the paperwork that goes back and forth between the contractor. The beauty of it is when the project's over, everything's already documented, it's already done. So with that, we've got inside of the project side, I've now got 5,000 inspection photographs on 365 daily inspection reports. So we have this thing documented inside and out. You'll be all in the picture. So now the trick is I got to make sure we can go find them. So working through that, we've got 400 or more submittals now and 260 requests for information. That's RFIs, questions from the contractor asking us, hey, how do you want us to do this? Hey, we can't find this. How do we, what do you want to replace it with? Those types of questions. And then finally, the big one here is the orange box at the bottom, which is 115 contract change orders. So I learned on this project that this is not a normal project when you're doing large construction of a facility, because we have more than 35 subcontractors. So every subcontractor that is a specialty has questions or, RFIs, they generate RFIs, or they find conflict between different trades that weren't found during design. So we have quite a few change orders, and we've been working through that. And so I'll hit the next slide. So as a result of that, we've got a little bit of a budget increase on this project. And so that's the I wanted to make sure it's part of the presentation. So we have gone up. And the reason why is kind of this pie chart over here on the side. So basically we're over budget for a variety of things. We under budgeted for support functions, and we found design conflicts. Those are more, you kind of expect to find those on a big project like this. We always budget for, having some sort of change orders and things that come as edits. We've got a lot of deferred submittals, so there's a lot of items. Specifically, the big ticket in this one is our security and fire alarm systems. We deferred those. In hindsight, I think we've lesson learned that we should have just done that up front and included it. But part of that was just, we have a very high level of security needs based on what type of project we've run. So as you guys know, with all of our regulatory aspects from Furher, NERC, WEC, we've got a lot of things. We have a secure control room in the facility, which basically ups the security of the whole facility. So that's one of the big ones. And then I have been involved in going through with the team. We've had a lot of people coming through the project trying to help us to identify things that are going to either make the project more durable, last longer, or just something that adds value to us in the future. And so that's that orange, and it's the largest is trying to basically keep the project improved. Main thing I'd like to highlight here is there's not a lot of change orders as far as like aesthetics or things to make things pretty. It's utility. It's things to make things last longer, more durable, or things that weren't seen in the first place that we've identified that we want to add to have a fully functioning facility for the next 50, 100 years. Well built. It's going to be a stout place, and it's a permanent fixture for the agency forever.
Was our original cost 25 or 27?
The original contract was awarded to actually to Hilbers is a little over 31.5 million. And so that's the contractor's portion of it, but then it's all these other support functions. We have the architectural firm, we have the testing firms, we have oversight for being on the project from SR Diversified. There's other things, labor compliance, there's a lot of smaller pieces. All of those are things that ultimately when we budgeted those, we kind of put a number on the table, and then that was what we originally asked for in May, I believe, last year. And so now we're truing up the costs, we're seeing it more accurately. Yeah, and then basically that sum that you approved to kick the project off was about 40 million May of last year. I think that's pretty much it on that. I'll give you a brief schedule update. So some of the good news on the project, again, we're looking for PG&E power here in a couple of weeks. That's a big milestone. Sometimes a lot of projects like you saw with Costco kind of get hung up with switchgear and PG&E. So we should not be in that category. We should be ahead of the game. We have spent money to make sure that we expedited our switchgear so we didn't end up having a year delay. Those are some of those costs that were unforeseen that I had in another pie chart. I didn't really focus on the unforeseens, but some of those were in there. The punch list and the walkthrough commissioning stuff, we just kicked off a meeting internally with our management team to try to figure out how we're going to move into this facility. So there's more things coming, that we're trying to understand what we need to do to actually move and migrate power systems out of, off the bottom of Lake Francis Road at the river up top. So we're just kicking that off, and that's going to include commissioning support, getting staff up there to actually see how does the system work? How am I going to run the irrigation pump? If it breaks, how do I know? So I've got to start doing a lot of training that's coming up. Septic and water commissioning, those two systems are coming hopefully here in April. So those are the two things that if I had a day or something that I was losing sleep over, it's going to be making sure those systems are not going to be the delay on the project. So I'm emphasizing those to the contractor right now to make sure that those are prioritized moving for the next couple of months. We do have a separate furniture contractor. They are kicked off and already under contract. We're expecting them to deliver in April. Occupancy, we're hoping sometime in May. And the good news is even with a lot of the changes and edits in the budget adjustment, we're still looking a little ahead of schedule of moving in earlier than what we thought would be probably August-ish of this year. So that's the good news. There are some loose ends. There's still things that could happen, but right now I'm hoping and I'm optimistic the contractor schedule showing May is when we're getting a notice from the county. But we will have to get a notice of occupancy from the county. So we have to meet their code compliance, and we've been doing it throughout, but we still have to get the final check. So I think last slide. Questions?
Do you expect any other budget increases?
I don't. We have a little bit of contingency in that improvement to handle the remaining part of the project, but the contractor's already billed out through almost 32 million of the project, I think already. So the change orders that we've been authorizing are based on the, you know, the assumption that we're going to be roughly done at this point. So, couple more months of medium billing. It's been really heavy. So again, all of the, Curtis's financials are showing a lot of expenditure. We've been invoicing, or they've been invoicing us for almost $3 million for 8-10 months now. So it's been really heavy on us reviewing invoices, getting everything approved, and big checks to cut. But that's slowing down right now. Good contractor doesn't have any more exterior work. They're really limited to just the interior work. So the bulk of the project is built.
How much of that over budget you think was just due to everything in life increasing since we first originally approved on that?
Absolutely a component to it. You know, we faced inflation, the contractor faced inflation. We also found that a lot of things that you spec a year and a half before are no longer in service. And there's a lot of small things in this. So every light that you thought you were going to order for $15 is now $18, and it's a different model, which then impacts something else, didn't get overlaid. So you chase these rabbits. The one little edit to a supply chain thing then chases into many other problems. That is significant. That's the bulk of, I think, really what a lot of those design conflicts and things like that came from. And it's related to inflation or just something on the product shelf is no longer available. There's definitely a component to that. Hard to measure, but it's definitely a big piece of it.
We're seeing that everywhere.
Hey, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll try and replicate the comment I made in the ABP, and that is, when we left PG&E in 2016, we focused on building the 24/7 control room and hiring and staffing employees to replace the PG&E employees that used to do the major capital upgrades on this project. I think I said something like the bulk of the employees that we currently house at Colgate that will be in this building back then were housed at 245 Market Street, 77 Beale, 1189 Crow Canyon Road, and 315 Sacramento Street, Auburn, all PG&E facilities. Now those people work for us and are housed at Colgate and will be housed at this building. This is the last piece, significant piece that we have to do to lead PG&E. We got the 24/7 control room. We're selling the power on our own. We staffed up, but we didn't. We always accounted for it, but it just took us a long time to get the building to put the people in, and that's what we're doing here. So we owe it to our employees to invest in this. I think they're excited. I mean, some of you in this room are going to be in this new building. I think they're excited to move in and hopefully this year. And Matt, excellent job. This has been super complicated, so good work there.
Well, and to add to that too, Will, you don't have to drive to Colgate very many times. I realize not only what this is going to save the agency, but our employees, especially the ones that have to drive from their house down there to get in a maintenance truck to drive out of there to Narrows and then drive back down there to get in their own personal car to drive home. The wear and tear it's putting on our vehicles and their vehicles, and I think it's going to be a big difference.
I'm happy, Pete. Good. Very good presentation. Very thorough.
I took our congressman on a tour of the facility, and I think they were a little nervous just riding in and out down that road.
Your first option was to fly them in, and they said no, right?
Yeah.
Smart.
All right, thank you, Matt, Casey, the rest of the team. Sorry to miss you, but 3 more minutes of me, and then we'll wrap this item up. So that was the power system budget adjustments. So Wayne's question about future budget things related to power system headquarters. I can see a furniture, picture, and equipment budget line item existing the first year after move-in to capture all the things that we didn't plan, like, oh, we need staplers or random things like that. That's gonna come up. So that was power systems budget adjustment. It's up $8 million. You saw the power system headquarters was up 10. We've offset it with some of those projects that we're not going to get to. We can kick those into the next year. And we'll budget those as we go through the process. Moving on to general fund, Jan can do this a little quicker. Let's just focus on the big numbers. So fishery enhancement, everything else is kind of minor. 102% increase though in fishery enhancement. That's where the Nature Like Fishway expenses lives in fishery enhancement. So we're continuing to move that ball down the field. We wait to see what exactly that project's going to look like, but we're taking it as far as possible in terms of design and whatnot. So that budget now is up to 11.6 million from the 5.7. It's all Nature Like Fishway. we're able to offset that a little bit in relicensing. Arc Spillway, kind of over budgeted that. It's at 100% design. We're waiting on FEMA external funding. And now there's these other paths like 401 and sort of the sequel stuff that we did today. That's the timeline. So I don't need as much budget in Arc Spillway under relicensing. And as a reminder, Arc Spillway is going to live in relicensing until we get the license because we want credit to hopefully extend the license term we do get. So it's easy to capture all those investments we're making under the relicensing account so we can show that as good faith effort and hopefully get a 4-year, 15-year FERC license when that time comes. The last one, community water project. So as a whole, it's up, or I'm sorry, down 20%. And it's coming from the grants activity portion of it, down 23%. As I mentioned before, we're working with our program area managers to dial in the external schedules that our partners have on these projects. These are reimbursement grants, so when we know when they're going to complete the work, about 30 days after that, we should expect to reimburse them. So I was able to take a little bit of that budget off the table, knowing that scope's not going to get done in time for the disbursement that hit June 30th of this year. So I was able to push that out. So that net increase to general fund budget of $2 million. Nationwide Fishway alone went up 6, so I was able to ratchet back some of the other budget to offset that increase. Last item, and I don't have a slide, but it's in the staff report for personnel. Not a lot of changes, just 2 requests that are both related to succession planning. We have that policy that's been in effect for a few years now, but to prepare for anticipated departures and/or retirements of the operations team, we're requesting an overfill of 1 operator trainee. What's fantastic is the trainee program has been great at getting operators ready for the full-time operator gig. So we're going to overfill that trainee position, hopefully rise them up through our ranks so they're full-blown operators. But then that also the overfill of the operator, because we know we have 1 near-term departure that we want to prepare for. So those are just temporary overfills, and we'll be back if those become permanent. That'll be a personnel allocation chart adjustment, and we'll bring that to you down the road. And those are the changes for the fiscal year 2025 budget here in December.
All right, any questions from the directors? Anybody from the public? Move to approve. Anybody like to make a motion? I did. Move. Is there a second?
Second. Very good presentation, though.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. All right, so now it comes to the best part of our meeting today. We're gonna item 7, we're gonna recognize Don Blazer for outstanding service and support of the community to his term as director of the agency. I have a proclamation to read, and Don, if you can join me over in the corner by the flag so everybody can see.
I get to stand through.
I probably need help. I have my glasses.
You don't have to read.
I just want to kind of add a side note while we're walking over there. It seems like it was yesterday, but it was almost 3 years ago when I ran for office. And at a meeting in this very room, Don stayed after and kind of helped me out and gave me a lot of advice. And invited me down to his office. And and I noticed today for a guy that owned a coffee house for 20 years, it's the smallest coffee cup I think I've ever seen in my life.
So I am limping at a new knee. This one is en route to be fixed. So once I get stand up and take a couple steps, I'm okay.
Okay. Proclamation recognizing Don Blazer for 4 years of dedicated service as director to the Yuba Water Agency. Whereas Don Blazer was elected by the people of Yuba County in 2020 as a Yuba County Supervisor representing District 2 and thereby serving as director of the Yuba Water Agency Board of Directors. And whereas during his tenure, Don faithfully served on the administration, budget, and personnel and projects, operations, and development committees, where he helped guide Yuba Water's budget, significant capital improvement projects, and community grants and loans. And as the Yuba Water representative for the Mountain Counties Water Resources Association. And whereas Don championed many projects and efforts designed to lift up the city of Marysville, including his participation in the Downtown Business Association and being a vocal champion for the efforts to restore Ellis Lake to its earlier grandeur. And whereas Don was active proponent of the Blue Zone initiative to encourage and incentivize healthier lifestyles in Yuba County. And whereas Don's unwavering dedication to Yuba County helped ensure the continued success and growth of the community. His leadership, vision, and collaborative approach fostering strong relationships both within Yuba-Water and with external partners. His impact extends beyond his role in Yuba-Water, influencing policies and initiatives that will continue to benefit the residents of Yuba County for years to come. Therefore, let it be known that this proclamation was duly passed by the Board of Directors of the Yuba-Water Agency at a regular meeting held December 17, 2024, and recognizes Don Blazer for his extraordinary service to the people of Yuba County. Good, Don. Thank you.
I've actually forgotten some of this stuff. But this isn't quite correct, but you could almost substitute my name for everybody in this room. We have the fortunate ability to be able to serve on many agencies. This has always been by far the most impressive. And it's not just in this county, probably within the state. So I just want to relay that whatever you are complimenting me on, it goes back to all of you. And I really appreciate being able to work with you. These are hard to read, aren't they?
Yeah.
You're not out of breath. Well, I'm going to leave it right there for now. And then there'll probably be more to say. And I'm going to probably stay in contact with most all of you one way or the other, because I just live down the road. So thank you very much.
Wasn't kidding about that coffee application. Yeah.
This was from Blue Forest. And it was free, because that is my motto. Cheaper free, that's me.
All right, managers report.
Maddie, they need to pass the resolution.
Oh.
I'll move to approve that resolution.
Thank you.
Would anybody like to second that? Approving this resolution?
Sure.
You can second that, Andy?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations. Managers report.
All right, so things are going well in the watershed. I'll keep this quick. Bullers is at 622,000 acre feet. That's 114% of normal. We've had 90% of average inflow. So a few weeks ago, we had a really good storm. This past weekend, we've had a really good storm. It seems like we're having some rain in the forecast. So things are going well. No flood type storms, no rain on snow events, but this is kind of a nice pattern to be in. So things are going pretty well there. Colgate Unit 2 is currently out on annual outage. So a bunch of folks are actually working on that today. It'll be back before the end of the month. Nothing really special other than that going on in the watershed. So I'll just get right to the government relations and communications update. So over the past several weeks, I've participated in 3 state water board workshops related to the Bay Delta Water Quality Control Plan and Healthy Rivers and Landscapes program, previously known as the voluntary agreements. And the team is also hard at work on written comments on the many meetings related to the plan updates that the state board is currently considering. And the state board is expected to finalize that plan, or those plan updates sometime next year. I'd also like to report that Yuba-Water is joining Cal Chamber as an advocate member, joining with other public water agencies from across the state. This membership will give us the ability to inform and help shape Cal Chamber's approach on water management issues that affect business, agriculture, industry, and communities, and will allow Yuba-Water to amplify our perspective on key issues, including voluntary agreements. On the communications side, a few weeks ago, I presented on a panel at the Public Policy Institute of California, PPIC, and that discussion was recorded and shared on YouTube, and they also published a blog breaking down the discussion. There was an article in the Appeal about the South County Wastewater Project's labor deal, which mentioned our partnership. UC Merced wrote an article about the importance of collaboration to deal with our wildfire risk, and it featured Joanna Lessard talking about how we're increasing the pace and scale of projects because of our innovative partnerships. We were also given a nice shout out in a release from UC San Diego about the atmospheric river research efforts with Scripps, which has been picked up by a few outlets as well. OPUD gave our comms team a nice plug in their newsletter and social for being a finalist in the Huell-Hauser Communications Excellence Awards. And our recent sponsorships included the Christmas Corral field trips for Yuba County Schools, the Christmas stocking stuffing at Yuba-Feather and Dobbin Schools, and the South Yuba Bright Light Battle. We have a special board meeting on Monday, the 23rd at 8 a.m. And our next regular board meeting is January 7th, which will also have an AVP and a pod. And that's all I have. Oh, and it's not all I have. Dawn, it has been great working for you. You're a great board member. It's been fun. You jumped right in, trying to learn all this stuff, quizzing me on things for a few months, and then all of a sudden you were critiquing me on things, which was great. So I appreciated that. And that's an example of that is just how you gave the compliment back to this team. And you basically just said, look, every compliment you guys have given me is reflected right back on this team. And we appreciate that, Dawn, and you've been a great board member, so thank you.
Well, you're a force to be reckoned with, and an acquired taste. I love it. But it's been fun.
All right, thanks.
All right, with that, director's reports. Dawn, you want to lead us off?
Well, yeah, I could do that. This is mostly related to Marysville. Years ago, not years ago, but probably within the last year, we got away from the word potential and switched over to momentum. And just real recently, we've seen a lot of that. We had a really nice groundbreaking for the new Hyatt Hotel, along with grocery outlet and another Starbucks over on B Street. We just recently had a signing for the new baseball team called the High Wheelers. This is probably going to be the most professional type team we've seen. And there's going to be about $500,000 additionally put into the field itself. I think primarily from the league, I think is where the money's coming from. Anyway, so we have that. We have all the other ongoing projects around town. Everything looks pretty positive. So we have a new hotel. We're taking down the old hotel, and everybody should be aware of that progress because it's in your face every day. We hope to open the other 2 lanes. They say mid-January, but I'm hoping it'll be a little bit before that. Hard to say. Must be something else I'm forgetting, but we've had a lot of good typical holiday events. The Christmas parade went really well. Tree lighting went really well. So a lot going on right now that's on the positive.
Andy?
I just want to thank the Yuba Endowment for helping Meals on Wheels and stepping up with $25,000. We hope to get that money back to you through the budget process. But thank you very much. That's it.
Okay. Wayne?
So I usually don't have a lot to say. I'm going to make up for that today. It's been a long meeting. I enjoyed my attendance at the OPUD conference a lot, learned a lot. One of the more exciting things was the session on Furher, and made me very proud of this agency for getting in early on that process and getting our water control manual updated. Showed a lot of foresight in doing that. One of the things I took away that I didn't think about before or didn't hear is that a new water control manual will help us conserve water in dry years too. It's not just about flood risk reduction. We should be able to conserve some water at times. Another big point that I took out of that is that of all the types of storms that cause rain in the whole world, the atmospheric rivers are the most predictable of all those types of storms. And they're becoming even more predictable as we fly further out into the Pacific to get more data, which is starting to happen. And so what that all meant to me is that the new water control manual, in combination with the ARC spillway, will really be game changers for us in the future. So that was really exciting. We've heard a lot of that in our own meetings. It was great to hear it from the foremost experts in the world on that. Another thing I attended was the reports on, or the ED's report on the Hugh Hauser Award finalists. We got to hear all those. I really thought that we should have won that, Edie, but it just helped me understand what our communications team does and how important you are in to you and your team. The heli hydrant was the thing John brought up here a little while ago. That was awarded the Innovation of the Year by Aqua. And so some of the desert communities are putting these tanks in they don't have a top on them, they have a valve so they can be filled quickly, controlled from the helicopter, and they can get water quickly on fires in that area. I think it's something for us to kick around here. We have more bodies of water here to dip from, so maybe it's not as critical. Also maybe harder to plumb here. You know, these are done in areas where there's plumbing everywhere. We have less of those opportunities, but I think a conversation, they started with a conversation with CAL FIRE on, hey, if we had these, we would use them. And how far apart should they be, and you know, all those kinds of things. I think it would be really interesting to just have those conversations and see if it fits in this area and if we should be involved in it. And the last thing, I went to a session on, there are 3 irrigation districts in the southern part of the Delta that have been studying predation effects on salmon, primarily. How many salmon are the stripers eating? And the answer so far they're getting is pretty much all of it. And they are looking to expand that, those studies, looking for funding to do that, looking for partners to do that. I don't know what the pluses and minuses are for us to be involved in something like that. I don't know if it's data that we need right now, but maybe sometime in the future, we would want to know how many salmon are the striper eating. And it's kind of amazing that nobody really knows that. We all talk about it. For some reason, it's a little bit of a taboo subject among some groups. So I don't know if that's something we should get involved in. Another thing I feel like we should kick around. And that's my report from Aqua.
Charlie?
I guess I was amazed that Cousin came by and talked about AI, artificial intelligence. And I had to type in how do you return more salmon in the Sacramento River system. And in less than 3 seconds, it came up with like 10 ideas that went in. And it also then made me think, because we talked about it, is that AI has to be hooked up to a lot of computers. And the demand in the future in California or in the United States for just the power to do these computers is something Willie has talked about, like a field Air Force or something. So I want to compliment the management of the water agency that they think so far ahead that they we're just a board that sets policy. The work is done by the staff. And I just wanted at Christmas time to say just a tremendous thank you to all of the staff. And the other thing I would like to say to a fellow farmer that we grew up in peaches and prunes, he had like many more crops to look after. To thank Don for the last 4 years of being on the same committee with us and doing an outstanding job.
Well, Charlie, it's been enjoyable to be with you because you and I have a lot of things in common, and including comparing the quality of the canes that we use to get around.
Thank you.
Gary?
So Director Bishop did a great job summarizing Aqua. I just want to say it was great to be down there with Director Bishop, Chair Messick, and staff, and to represent the agency at Aqua JPIA and the Aqua Conference itself. I have an Aqua Executive Committee meeting tomorrow, and the only other thing is, John, thank you so much for your service. It's been great working with you. You know, we have more to come. I know. A testament to that, among the many things that have been shared, is, you know, I know you meet regularly, I think monthly, for breakfast with Willie, and that just shows your dedication to digging into the agency. On the supervisor side, I know that the things that really impressed me early on after you were elected, before you took office, is you reached out to each of the board members and asked for a tour and discussion of each of our individual districts to really get a good understanding of the different issues in different parts of the county. So, thanks, John.
Great, thank you. I'll add to the Aqua experience. We all attended Aqua. Gary and Wayne and I decided to kind of divide and conquer and go to different meetings and bring back different ideas. One of the ones I went to was the Sigma thing, and I've been hearing for 2 years now that they're going to fallow 1 million+ acres in the Central Valley. So I don't know when that's going to transpire, or if you guys have any idea when those, or if they've already started happening. But it was just really puts a highlight on Yuba County, and that we deliver water to all the agriculture in Yuba County, just through the drought and in general, because those farmers are going to be facing foreclosures and going out of business. So it'd be a bad deal. And I would like to bring up, both of these guys forgot to mention about the water yoga session, because I noticed neither one of them showed. So it was great hanging out with staff down there, but only 3 of us showed up for yoga: Dee Dee and Fallon. Bonnie, you didn't go to yoga, did you?
I stretched from my hotel room.
Okay. And a special mention to Kelly McNally, manager of Brown Valley Irrigation, also made yoga. And it's just kind of like Dawn going for a free cup. I did it for free, sure.
That was water yoga?
No, I thought it was going to be water yoga.
Like I missed out.
Unfortunately, they corrected me because I was going to show up in my swimsuit. It's water session yoga on the grass. No, I had a really good time, especially I picked Director Bishop up at his house. We drove to the airport together. We drove, I don't know, what, an hour and a half or so from the airport down there to Palm Springs and back, and
just time for me to catch your cold.
Yeah, I gave him my cold, but then I ended up getting the flu later. But just great, you know, when you drive an hour and a half or so to the airport, and it seemed like it was 5 minutes because we just had so much to talk about, and really the whole weekend hanging out socially with the staff, getting to know everybody on a more personal level was great. And to add what Dawn said about the Marysville Christmas Parade, I'd like to announce that Browns Valley 4-H won that parade, as well as we also won the very first Loma Rica Foothills Community Parade that we had Sunday, which was a huge success. That's it.
Can I make a couple comments?
Yes.
Well, first comment is the value we're getting out of these aqua trips. I mean, obviously paying off. You guys are going to sessions, talking about them here. That's awesome. I was going to make that comment until I heard about the yoga thing, and I'm wondering, should we continue this effort? At any rate, I want to talk about the session that Director Bishop attended with Marty Ralph of the Scripps Institute on the Furher and Water Control Manual. I said in an earlier presentation, I'll say it again, John, is it February 18th? February 18th. So 6 weeks ago, we did a presentation on the ARC spillway, just an update to tell you guys where we were. And we said, hey, we're going to have an upcoming presentation on the paperwork side of it, the software side of it, and that's the water control manual and the Furher. And I asked John, hey, it'd be awesome if we could get Marty Ralph there, our partner at Scripps Institute. Marty's available on February 18th, so we have that scheduled for February 18th. It will be a modified version of what you heard at Aqua, Wayne, so it'll be custom for a Yuba Water Agency. So I wanted to let you guys know that we have that coming up. And then lastly, on the stripers, Wayne, we're absolutely going to be involved in that. I asked Bonnie, who attended that session as well, to get me all presentation. She's already done that. And we're gonna have to be involved in the stripers. One, it's just good generally, as I think we're recommending for us to do. But secondly, there is an issue related to the new Nature Like Fishway related to stripers that we will have to dive into as well specifically. So want to let you know we're gonna dive in there. Lastly, for fun, yes, Don, when he started, said, I need tours, I need tours, I need tours. And he got a tour of all the districts and all that. But he pays those back. He took me to Bucks Lake his second year and took me to his cabin at Bucks Lake. It was great. We spent the day up there. And I want to let you know, he's not just taking in, he's giving back as well. So thanks.
All right, we are going to take a 10-minute recess and then go into closed session.
Yuba-Sutter.live's local government live streams are presented by Plumas Lake Self-Storage in Plumas Lake, where lifelong local residents are helping other residents keep things safe, providing indoor storage units, outdoor RV and vehicle parking, moving supplies, and Penske truck rentals. Details at plumaslakeselfstorage.com.
Hi, I'm Neil Goforth of Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties. Caring for elders or even yourself has challenges. Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties can help you address today's issues and plan for tomorrow with in-home and specialized care for you or your family members. Call us at 530-749-8800. Comfort Keepers of Yuba, Sutter, and Nevada counties.
In Yuba County, there's a legendary diner.
Oh, it looks delicious. Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Where the parking lot tells a story. A story as simple as biscuits and gravy.
The food is good. The prices are wonderful. My dad has so many friends here that come here, and it's my dad and mom have known Mary Jane and her dad before Duke.
Duke's Diner on 7th Avenue, home of legendary chili, holiday pies, and generations of local residents preparing tasty, hearty food for generations of local people. Join Mary Jane and her genial associates as they serve meals you'll come back for. Duke's Diner on 7th Avenue, Olivehurst.
In Marysville, where roots run deep, McNally Appliances promises to keep the best brands with a smile on its face. We service what we sell, it's a warm embrace. Competitive pricing you can't ignore. With every purchase, you'll love it more. From fridges to washers, all in a line. We install with care to make it shine. Major brands, trusted and true. McNally Appliances is here for you. Oh, McNally, we're your first choice. In Marysville, we help you rejoice. We service what we sell, don't need to stress. At McNally Appliances, we're simply the best. Our promise stands, we'll always be here. McNally Appliances, bringing your cheer.
McNally Appliances, 119 D Street, Marysville. McNallyAppliances.com. You've seen signs marking some of the gems in Marysville. They're produced by Sapphire Sign Company, providing something small, large, and mobile. With decades of experience, Sapphire Signs has pioneered local production of a variety of signs, like temporary campaign-style signs, welcomes for unique events, building signage, event promotion, and vehicle customization. Need a sign? Make it a gem from Sapphire Sign Company. On the web at sapphiremarketinggroup.net. Sapphire. There's more Christmas to come on Yuba-Sutter.live. We're going all over Yuba-Sutter, catching a number of Christmas celebrations in the act of happening. Friday at 5 p.m. we'll have the Yuba City Christmas tree lighting and then zip out to Sutter for the 6:30 Sutter Parade of Lights. If you missed any of them, you can binge watch them for the first time or watch them again right here this Sunday night. 5 p.m., the Marysville Christmas tree lighting and 73rd Marysville Christmas Parade replay. We'll list the winners. Then at 7 p.m., the 55th Olivehurst Christmas Parade replay, also with winners noted. At 8 o'clock, the Yuba City Downtown Christmas Tree Lighting and Sutter Parade of Lights replay. Christmas events in Yuba-Sutter this Sunday evening at 5, 7, and 8.
Merry Christmas, Yuba-Sutter Live.
In the heart of the valley, we rise so bright, where the news flows freely in the morning light. Yuba-Sutter Live, where truth comes alive. Every Tuesday's a journey, it's where we thrive. Watch it unfold. Yuba-Sutter Live, in the heart of our home. Be informed, be wise. Yuba-Sutter Live, we capture it all. Policy debates, hear the people's call. With Yuba-Sutter Live, you'll never miss a beat. Special reports hit hard, shining a spotlight. Yuba-Sutter Live. Yuba-Sutter Live.
There's more Christmas to come on Yuba-Sutter.live. We're going all over Yuba-Sutter, catching a number of Christmas celebrations in the act of happening. Friday at 5 p.m. we'll have the Yuba City Christmas tree lighting and then zip out to Sutter for the 6:30 Sutter Parade of Lights. If you missed any of them, you can binge watch them for the first time or watch them again right here this Sunday night. 5 p.m., the Marysville Christmas tree lighting and 73rd Marysville Christmas Parade replay. We'll list the winners. Then at 7 p.m., the 55th Olivehurst Christmas Parade replay, also with winners noted. At 8 o'clock, the Yuba City Downtown Christmas Tree Lighting and Sutter Parade of Lights replay. Christmas events in Yuba-Sutter this Sunday evening at 5, 7, and 8.
Merry Christmas, Yuba-Sutter Live.
You're watching Yuba-Sutter.live, Yuba-Sutter's live streaming channel on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for watching, and Merry Christmas.